My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was sleeping over at my house. I was dealing with insomnia back then, so I was lying awake in the middle of the night while she slept beside me. At some point, I heard something fall from my computer desk. I do not know why, but it scared me badly enough that I pulled the blanket over my head. Then I heard it. Heavy breathing. Right in front of my face, not far away, not from the other side of the room. It sounded like someone was standing right outside my blanket, breathing inches away from me. I froze. The breathing started moving. It sounded like it was circling the bed. I could not bring myself to look. Then my girlfriend started moving around. She threw her blanket off because she needed to use the restroom. She shuffled toward the end of the bed. Then she screamed. Not a startled scream, a scream full of actual terror. She started crying immediately. She said there was a little girl sitting on the floor at the edge of the bed. I jumped up on the bed and launched myself as far as I could toward the light switch. When I asked what she saw, she said the girl was curled up in a fetal position, looking distressed. Then the girl looked up at her. I told her I had been hearing breathing outside my blanket right before she saw it. Needless to say, we left the light on for the rest of the night. I lived in a mansion that was more than 100 years old. At some point, it had been divided into apartments. My roommate and I lived on the top floor. We had attic access and a private entrance at the back of the house. One evening, I was watching a movie with my boyfriend when my roommate texted me. He said he was bringing a date home and asked if they could use the big TV. I told him yes. So my boyfriend and I moved to my bedroom to finish our movie. A little while later, we heard heavy footsteps coming up the back stairs. Then we heard the very loud, squeaky kitchen door open and close. We heard footsteps cross the kitchen, pass my bedroom door, and continue down the hall. I assumed it was my roommate and his date. We finished our movie. My boyfriend left. Then I realized something. I was the only person in the apartment. I called my roommate and asked if he had been home. He said no, we just got to Blockbuster. We're choosing a movie and then heading home. I called my boyfriend right away and told him I was sleeping at his house. When I was a preteen or young teenager, my family moved into a house that started feeling wrong almost immediately. It began with footsteps in the attic. The attic was not tall enough for anyone to walk around in, so at first we blamed rats or animals. But my grandmother got so uncomfortable that she stopped visiting. Then we started seeing things. A woman peeking around corners. A little boy running around. A shadow of a man standing at the end of the hallway. One night, I was in my dad's bedroom with two of my brothers. We were watching a movie. I saw what I thought was my dad crawling into the room on his hands and knees. He used to do things like that to scare us, so I just gave him the signal that I saw him and went back to watching the movie. I expected him to crawl up and grab my little brother's foot. Then, my dad's bedroom door opened. Light flooded the hallway, and there was no one crawling there. Nothing. No one. That was the most terrified I had ever been in that house. I once went to my friend's grandparents' house. His uncle lived there after the grandparents passed away. The uncle said the place was haunted, and one night he woke up because he heard something moving inside the closet. He looked toward the closet, and he saw a woman crawling out of it on her hands and knees. She crawled out slowly. Then she crawled into the hallway. He never forgot it. And honestly, after hearing that story, neither did I. Years ago, I worked at a Walgreens photo desk. One day, a woman came in with an old black and white photo of herself as a child. She told me that when she was little, she used to tell her mother there were devils in the trees around their house. Her mother always thought she had a wild imagination. Then she showed me the photo. It was from the 1960s. In the picture, she was a little girl in a white dress, smiling on what looked like a bright sunny day. But in the trees behind her, there were faces, all over the bark, in the branches, in the old tree scars. It looked like elongated, devilish faces peeking out from everywhere. Maybe it was pareidolia. Maybe it was shadows and tree patterns. But it did not look normal. The woman told me that when she was a child, she hated playing in that backyard because those faces were always around her, staring from every angle. Even as an adult, she still hated going back to that house. She wanted an enlarged copy of the photo to show her mother that she had not been making it up. That photo still haunts me. I have 2 stories. The first happened in Bosnia. We were driving through the mountains toward the capital so we could get to the airport and go home. Bosnia has a lot of tragedy in its recent history, and I am a spiritual person, so I always try to be respectful in places where people may have suffered. While we were driving, I saw something in the middle of the road. I could not figure out what it was. It looked like an animal, but there was something really wrong about it. One moment it was there. The next moment, it vanished. Now every time we drive down that same road, I look for it. I have never seen it again. My deceased uncle was very into Ouija boards when he was a teenager. My dad's family was extremely religious, so I still do not know how he got away with using one. One day, he was playing with the board and saw something in the corner of the room. It was big, completely black. It had huge horns. The only color on it was its red eyes. It scared him badly enough that he put the board away. But he never officially said goodbye. After that night, my dad said he would have horrible nightmares any time he slept in that house. The nightmares only stopped when he moved away for college. Years later, when I was about 8 or 9, my dad needed a mattress for my room. My other uncle, who still lived in their childhood home, offered him a used one. My dad did not know where the mattress came from. He brought it to our place and started taking it off the car. Our dog was sitting outside near the garage. The second my dad started bringing that mattress toward the house, our dog freaked out. She ran into the garage, cowered in the corner, and started barking at it. This dog never barked. My dad decided something was wrong and took the mattress back. When he asked which room it came from, my uncle said, "It's Tim's mattress." That was the same uncle who had used the Ouija board. My dad put the mattress back in that room and looked around. He swears he saw the same black-horned thing my uncle had described years earlier. We rarely visit that house now, and whenever I go near that room, I feel like I am not alone. I slept on an inherited mattress all through high school. During that time, I had horrible graphic nightmares, and weird things would happen around me. One time, I had fallen asleep in my room with the light on. My mom came in to turn it off. Apparently, I was sitting upright in bed with my eyes open, just staring at her. She asked if I was all right. I supposedly said yes while looking straight at her. Then she turned the light off, and I just kept staring at her from the dark. I have no memory of any of that. Later, I found out the mattress had belonged to my mother's father. He was an awful man, and he died of cancer on that mattress. After I moved out and got a different mattress, the nightmares and weird occurrences stopped. Everyone was in the living room one night when, all of a sudden, the hairdryer in the bathroom turned on. I was about 11 at the time. I went to investigate. As soon as I turned the corner into the bathroom, I saw the hairdryer drop from a spot higher than the counter. It looked like it had been floating. As soon as it fell, it turned off. Around that same time, our cat started screaming in the middle of the night and clawing at the air. It scared me and my sister so badly that we crawled into bed with my mom, and I could tell even she was freaked out. My sister used to rent a unit where weird things happened. She told me stories for years, but I had never experienced any of it myself. Then one time, while I was visiting her, that changed. We were watching TV, and I went to the kitchen to get a drink. I walked past the bathroom door. It was open. When I came back, the bathroom door was closed. My sister had not moved from the sofa, and there was a bad tile on the bathroom floor, so the door always got stuck. You had to physically force it over the tile. No wind could have done it. No one had touched it. I thought it was strange, but I tried to ignore it. About 10 minutes later, we were both sitting there when we heard an incredibly loud banging on the door that led to the backyard. Bang, bang, bang. We looked outside. Nothing. No person. No dog. No explanation. Later, she went to bed. I stayed up a little longer watching TV. When I finally turned the TV off and stood up, I heard the sound of something heavy being dragged across wood. I looked up. She had a big dolphin statue on top of her TV cabinet. It was slowly moving forward by itself. It moved maybe 10 centimeters, then stopped. The next morning, I could see scratches in the wood where it had moved. My sister was not surprised when I told her. That place is the only time in my life I have ever experienced paranormal activity in person. My next-door neighbor and I had a little hangout spot in the patch of woods behind our houses. We were about 14 at the time and experimenting with cigarettes, so that was where we hid. One evening, around sunset, we were out there when we heard her grandmother calling to us. We panicked and put the cigarettes out because we thought we were caught. Then the voice called our names again. This time, it sounded closer. That was when we realized something was wrong. Her grandmother lived at least 3 hours away. She was not visiting, and the voice was coming from deeper inside the woods, not from our backyards. We ran out of there as fast as we could. As we ran, the voice called one last time. But this time, it sounded different. Deeper, angrier. We never went back into those woods unless it was broad daylight. Something similar happened with my children. They were little and having a sleepover at my mom and stepdad's house. Their house backs onto Woodland. My daughter and youngest son were playing in the garden one evening when they heard my mom call them from the woods. They were about to go toward the voice, but my daughter stopped. She said something felt off about the way the voice sounded. It sounded exactly like my mom, but different at the same time. She also thought it was strange that my mom would be standing in the woods, in the dark, calling them. So she stopped her brother, and they went into the house instead. They asked my stepdad where my mom was. She was upstairs. Whatever had called them sounded exactly like her. It was calling their names from the woods. This happened to a neighbor of mine growing up. She had a lot of spooky things happen in her house, but this was the worst. She was home alone in the early 2000s. She was in the basement with every light on, chatting online and talking on the house phone. After signing out of the computer, she went upstairs. Then the landline rang. It was her grandmother. Her grandmother started demanding to know who was in the house with her. The girl kept saying no one was there. Her biological father was banned from the house at the time, so her grandmother kept insisting she would not be in trouble if she just told the truth. Then her grandmother said, "Well, I just got a phone call from your caller ID saying, 'Bring home light bulbs.'" The girl grabbed a bat. She called her mom and stepdad to come home. Then she barricaded herself in her bedroom. When they got home and searched the house, they went into the basement. Every single light bulb down there was dead. I was playing hide and seek with my sister in our house. It was pretty dark. I went into my parents' room and looked inside the built-in wardrobe. I could hear breathing. I reached inside. Something touched my arm. I shouted, "Found you." Then my sister shouted from downstairs, "No, you haven't." I ran screaming downstairs and told my mom. She went up to look. Nothing was there. That same house had other things happen too. I saw a face in the mirror once, and when I was in the basement, I heard footsteps upstairs when nobody else was home. When my wife was young, her family lived with her grandparents. Her grandfather was murdered inside that home. It happened in his upstairs bedroom. For more than 20 years, the room was mostly used as storage. Years later, after my wife and I had kids, my father-in-law decided he wanted that same room to become a hangout space for the grandkids. He put sleeping bags and a TV in there. He also wanted all the cousins to sleep in that room together during a holiday gathering. We did not like the idea, but the murder was a sore subject, so we stayed quiet. We were the first to arrive. My oldest son was 6 at the time, and he went into the room alone. After a couple of hours, I went to check on him. He was sitting still and rigid in front of the TV. He would not look away from the screen. I asked, "Hey buddy, is everything okay up here?" He said yes. I started to leave. Then he said, "Daddy, do I have to sleep in here? I don't want to." I asked why. He said, "I am not alone." Every hair on my body stood up. I told him I was there with him. He said, "No, there is someone in here with us." I asked if it was a grown-up or a kid. He said, "A grown-up." I asked what they were doing. He said, "They are watching you." Then I asked where they were. Without looking away from the TV, he pointed to the far corner of the room, the corner where his great-grandfather had been murdered. He said, "They are standing over there. They don't move much." I told him he did not have to stay in that room. He left with me. None of the grandkids slept in there that night. I used to have lots of strange things happen in my mom's old house. After a while, I got so used to it that it became more annoying than terrifying. Almost everything happened in the basement. My sister and I had always been afraid to be alone down there. Eventually, after sharing a room with her for years, I wanted my own room. So my dad built me a bedroom in the basement. The uneasy feeling never really left, but I learned that nothing ever hurt me. Then one night, I was trying to sleep and heard a faint melody coming from the storage room under the stairs. I quickly recognized it. It was from a music toy I had when I was really young. The next day, I found the toy. It did not work anymore. When I was about 15 or 16, I was in the bathroom blow-drying my hair. I usually kept the door open because the sound was too loud when the door was closed. As I was drying my hair, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A black silhouette of a person turned the corner and sprinted toward me at full speed. I did not know what else to do. I threw the blow-dryer at it and fell to the floor in the fetal position. After a few seconds, I sat up. Nothing was there. The blow-dryer was on fire on the floor, probably from me throwing it into the wall. That was the only time the thing in that basement really scared me. Afterward, I stood up and basically told it to leave me alone. Nothing malicious happened again after that. In that same basement, I used to hear clear conversations coming from the furnace room when nobody else was home. It was usually a man and a woman talking. There were no men living in the house. Whenever I went to investigate, the voices would suddenly stop. I also used to call the ghost Kenny. One day, I downloaded one of those fake EMF detector apps and asked what the spirit's name was. The name I got back was Ken. He would mess with my music and my things. Sometimes music from my phone would turn into static, which did not make sense. I would just say, "Hey Kenny, please stop." And it would go back to normal. Kenny seemed to hate when I was leaving for trips. Whenever I was packing, my things would get moved around, or my music would turn into static. One night, right before bed, I disconnected my camera's transfer cord and put it down on the floor beside me. A few minutes later, I got up to brush my teeth. When I came back and stepped into my doorway, the same cord was stretched straight across the door's threshold. It was at least 3 feet from where I had left it. By that point, I was so used to it that I just sighed and said, "Now is not the time." Then I went to bed. Another morning, I heard drawers opening and papers being shuffled around. It went on for about 5 minutes. I called out to my mom, asking what she was looking for. When I opened my door, no one was there. Papers were scattered all over the floor. I texted my mom. She had not even gotten out of bed yet. One day, my ex-boyfriend and I were sitting on the couch in the basement, watching a movie. Suddenly, I saw a silhouette move from left to right in the bathroom down the hall. I turned my head to look. At the same time, my boyfriend's head shot in the same direction. He said, "Whoa." Did you see that? Finally, someone else had seen it too. My mom has since moved out of that house, and now she admits strange things happened in the basement. When I was younger, she always denied it. Probably to keep herself sane. Now, if I tell her the stories, she asks me to stop because it freaks her out. I lived in an apartment with 2 roommates. A lot of things happened there, but the scariest involved one of my roommates. One morning, we heard him scream at the top of his lungs. We rushed into his room. He was paler than I had ever seen him. He said he woke up and saw a little girl standing at the end of his bed. At first, he thought he might be dreaming, so he looked around. He pinched himself. He was sure he was awake. Then he looked back. The girl was still there. He worked up the courage to ask, "Who are you?" The little girl looked at him. Then she started screaming at him. Then she disappeared. He did not sleep in that room for a month after that. He alternated between our bedrooms, and none of us gave him a hard time for it. When I worked at a psychiatric hospital, every morning around the same time, we would hear footsteps running down the service hallway. It took me a couple of weeks to notice the pattern. It happened around 2 in the morning, but after the footsteps, there were never any sounds of doors opening or closing. That was strange, because the hallway had heavy doors at both ends, and there was no way to close them silently. One night, the footsteps started, and I ran to the hallway. No one was there. I looked everywhere. Nothing. There were fisheye mirrors in the corners, so you could see if someone was around the bend. One time, the footsteps started, and I immediately looked into those mirrors. No one. I do not really believe in ghosts. But a lot of people swore that place was haunted. Someone else told me those footsteps had been heard there for a long time. Either way, it was creepy when it happened at 2 in the morning, when everything else was quiet. I had a teacher in elementary school that I had not thought about in years. One night, I woke up sweating. My girlfriend was still awake watching TV. She asked what happened. I told her I had a dream about that teacher. The next day, I spoke to a relative on the phone. They told me that teacher had died. This was before social media. I had not seen it online. I had not heard anything about it. I just woke up from a dream about someone I had not thought of in years, and the next day I found out they were gone. It shook me for a while. About a year ago, we moved to a house in a rural area. Woods, open fields, cows, that kind of place. Not long after we moved in, I was outside at night with my German Shepherd, trying to get him to do his business before bed. It was winter, maybe 8 or 9 at night. It was dark, clear, and quiet. Then I heard wind chimes coming from the side of my house. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I called my dog and hurried back inside. The creepy part is, we do not own wind chimes. I never heard them again. Sometimes, while driving down vacant wooded roads, I see lights that look like headlights crossing from a side road. But when I get to where the road should be, there is no road, just woods. Other times I see headlights coming toward me that disappear when they dip down a hill. When I crest the hill, they are gone. No turnoffs, no cars, just empty road. There are weird things in the woods, and I do not think they like us being there. I went to school in Savannah, and my housemates and I had a ghost we called Shern. He was usually pretty chill. He would close doors, turn lights on and off, the usual ghost stuff. Whenever it happened, we would just say, "Thanks, Shern," or "Time to knock it off, Shern." But whenever we came back from winter or summer break, he would be angry. Doors would slam, glasses would get pushed off counters, other things would move violently. After the second time it happened, we learned that if all of us apologized for leaving him alone for so long, he would calm down within a day. After we moved out, a friend of mine and his buddies moved in. I warned them about Shern and his outbursts after breaks. They laughed at me. A couple months later, I got a call from them asking the proper way to apologize to Shern. When my son was around 18 months to 2 years old, he was just starting to learn words. He could maybe say dog or dad, but not much more. Then he started calling his toy monkey Gonga, clear as day. Every time he had it, he would say, Gonga, Gonga, Gonga. He said it so much that we started thinking it was weird. One day my uncle came over, and we mentioned it. He said he swore there used to be a toy monkey in the 1970s called a Gonga. We looked it up. There was. Neither my wife nor I had ever heard of it. We had never had one. As my son grew up, he stopped calling it that. Now he is 12 and does not remember it at all. My mother has had a sixth sense since she was a kid. She can usually sense spirits around that other people cannot. When I was 16, we moved into a shady apartment in Dallas. I started having sleep paralysis, but something about it was different. Usually, when I have sleep paralysis, I do not see anything. I just lie there for a couple of minutes. In that apartment, I started seeing a shadow figure. Whenever it looked at me, I would hear this loud, painful metal sound in my ears. The one I remember most happened when I was sleeping on the couch. From where I was, I could see my parents' bedroom door. After waking up from seeing the figure, I looked over toward their room, wondering if I should wake my mom. Their bedroom door was open, and I saw the same darker-than-black figure look at me. Then it ducked behind the door. The next morning, I had not said anything to my mom. But in the car, she asked me if I had been having dark things happen. I asked why. She said, I sometimes feel something in that apartment, like all the negative things in the complex have been molding into one thing. When I was about 11, I was on a school camp. At night, our group was taken to a nearby lake to go fishing for eels. On the way back to our accommodation, we had to walk a dirt track around the edge of the lake. My best friend and I ran ahead of the group. We rounded a bend that put us out of sight of the 20 kids and adults behind us. As we came around the bend, we both saw her. A young girl in a white dress. She looked like the most stereotypical ghost you can imagine. She was completely white-blue in color and slightly translucent. We screamed and ran back to the group. When everyone else got to the same bend, she was gone. My friend and I both saw the exact same thing. When I was 15, a childhood friend of mine passed away. Months later, at her headstone unveiling, a lot of friends and family were there. Each of us was given a helium balloon. We stood in a big circle, said a prayer, and on the count of 3, everyone released their balloons. The youngest person there was my friend's little cousin, no older than 3. She did not let her balloon go until 5 or 10 seconds after everyone else. When she finally released it, her balloon did not shoot up like the rest. It rose slowly to just above head height. Then it stayed there. Without changing height at all, it slowly made a complete circle above the heads of everyone in the crowd. Nobody said a word. We all just watched. After it completed the circle, it rose up and drifted away. Maybe it was a coincidence, but it felt like something more. A couple nights after my friend died, she came to me in a dream. I apologized for not visiting her in the hospital. She told me not to worry. She said everything was fine, and that she was okay. I was reading The Shining at about 2 in the morning. I went into the kitchen for a snack and started eating a piece of leftover chicken. My head was still stuck in the book. On the counter, there was a square basket full of paper napkins sitting on top of a lazy Susan. I was eating the chicken and staring at it. Then I thought, wouldn't it be freaky if that started to turn? A few seconds later, the lazy Susan started moving. Then it started getting faster and faster. It was spinning so fast that the napkins went flying everywhere. My eyes got huge. I ran back to bed with my boyfriend so fast I do not think my feet touched the ground. He was skeptical when I told him. But when we went back into the kitchen, the napkins were all over the floor. Yes, it was 2 in the morning. Yes, I had been reading Stephen King. But I still do not know how those napkins got everywhere.